standing as we now observe a minute of silence as a mark of respect for the deaths of the 19 young Guyanese who perished in a tragic fire yesterday in Madhya, Region 8. Thank you. Please be seated. Your Excellency, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Manzu Nadir, the Director General for the International Labour Organization is unable to be with us today and will join us virtually, but he is represented by Regional Director for Latin America, Claudia Cunyots, Mr. Dennis Zulu, Director, ILO Caribbean Office, Deputy Director Lars Johannesson and other ILO representatives, Ms. Alison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General, Human and Social Development at CARICOM, Honorable Joseph Hamilton, Minister of Labour here in Guyana and other Cabinet Ministers, Honorable Colin Jordan, Minister of Labour, Social Security and Third Sector Barbados, other Caribbean member states' labor ministers present or their representatives, Ms. Yushim Uruk, UN Resident Coordinator, and other members of the Diplomatic Corps, special invitees, ladies and gentlemen, members of the local and the regional media, good morning and welcome to the 12th ILO meeting of Caribbean Ministers of Labour under the theme Social Justice, the Foundation for Sustainable Caribbean Transformation here in Georgetown, Guyana. The ILO, through its Decent Work Team and Office for the Caribbean, in collaboration with the Government of Guyana through the Ministry of Labour here, are pleased to host you, the Ministers of Labour from the 13 ILO member states and the non-metropolitan territories of the English and Dutch-speaking Caribbean. When you last met, it was the centenary of the ILO. This year, it is the 50th anniversary of CARICOM, and this meeting this morning falls in the week when Guyana marks her 57th independence anniversary. But it is also a very sad time for our country as we observe 3 days of national mourning for the 19 young fire victims of Madhya in the heartland of our country and the survivors fighting for their lives in hospitals. The organizers and delegates of the meeting, no doubt, join in sympathy, deep concern, and prayer as we all try to comprehend the profound loss and pain. And so you will appreciate the tone of the ceremony this morning. It will reflect the somberness that we feel as a nation. And so I now invite Honorable Joseph Hamilton, Minister of Labour, for his remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Cabinet, colleagues, Mr. Dennis Zulu, Director of the ILO Caribbean Office, Ms. Uru, UN Resident Coordinator, Honorable Colin Jordan, Minister of Labour, Social Security and Third Sector Barbados, Ms. Alison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General for Human and Social Development of CARICOM, Speaker of the National Assembly, and Mr. Gilbert Rumbrou, who is on Zoom, Director General of the ILO, visiting Ministers of Labour and members of their delegation, representatives of businesses and trade unions, distinguished guests and participants, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by wishing each and every one here today and our virtual participants a very good morning or good day wherever you are. It is indeed a distinct pleasure to welcome you this morning to the opening session of the 12th ILO meeting of the Caribbean Ministers of Labor, which is being held at the Marriott Hotel here in Georgetown, the capital city of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. I must say that it is a significant occasion for us, since it is the third time in 25 years that the ILO Caribbean Ministers of Labor are meeting here in Guyana. In the first instance, the second ILO meeting of this nature was held in Guyana in 1998. In the second instance, the seventh meeting was held 12 years later in 2010, and the 13 years after, the meeting of the 12th ILO Caribbean Ministers Conference is now held in Guyana. We are honored to have once again been chosen as the host country for this meeting and look forward to a very successful meeting. A special welcome to Guyana, to the team from the International Labour Organization, who is being led by Mr. Dennis Dulu, the Director of the Caribbean Office of the International Labour Organization. I know it is not your first visit here, and I must say that the ILO has been very supportive of the Ministry of Labour in our efforts to promote social justice and a decent work agenda in Guyana. Over the years, the records will show that the ILO has collaborated with us and provided technical assistance to this ministry. With the assistance, we were able to develop and implement a decent work country program, which has contributed to positive developments in industrial relations, occupational safety and health, cooperatives, recruitment and placement services, and the enhancement of technical training for young persons to enter the world of work. We are appreciative of this support and look forward to greater collaboration in the future, not only with the ILO, but also with our colleagues who are part of this meeting, which is being held here in Guyana. So, our visiting friends, brothers and sisters, welcome to our country. Welcome to our land. Welcome to the land of the jaguar. Welcome to the land of the Kanji peasant. Welcome to the land of the giant anteater and the large river otters, the land of pristine red forests, many mountains and waterfalls, even though internationally persons are acquainted with only the Kaichur Falls. I think that it would be very remiss of me if I did not spend some time introducing our visitors to this beautiful country. This is particularly so for those of you who are visiting Guyana for the first time, and even those who have been here before. The Cooperative Republic of Guyana is also known as Guyana, land of many waters. It is situated on the mainland of South America, with its boundaries being Suriname on the east, the mighty Atlantic Ocean in the north, Venezuela on the west, and Brazil in the south. Our country is a very large country, 83,000 square miles in size. There are three main rivers. They are the Berbice, the Demerara, and Essequibo River. In the case of the Essequibo, we have 365 islands there, one for each day of the year. Our largest islands are Hog Island, Wickedam, and Leguan. There are many discussions about our population presently, but it is stated that it is in some way about 800,000 persons who are children of the East Indian immigrants, African slaves, the Portuguese immigrants, Chinese immigrants, and of course, our Amerindian brothers and sisters, the indigenous people of Guyana, that all of us came here and met. And today we have in the milieu the mixed race people of Guyana. Although we are made up of 6 races, we are ourselves one Guyana in this country. Most of the population live on the coastline, while the rest live in the hinterland. I would say to our visiting friends that it would be important that you enjoy some of our culture, more so. Our food that is reflected in our heritage, whether Indian, African, Chinese, Portuguese, or Amerindian. Although we are geographically located in South America, we are considered a Caribbean nation. and our culture, particularly on the coastline, are similar to those of our friends, brothers and sisters in the West Indies. However, our diversity of culture is very evident in our national cuisine. Our national dishes, I hope you taste them: pepper pot, you cannot resist; cook up rice, chicken curry and not curry chicken. And I nearly forgot to mention that we are the best Chinese food to offer. And I think we are the only country this side of the hemisphere where people enjoy eating Chinese food out of a brown paper bag. They think it tastes a lot better too. For those who are tasters, our beverages, I'm pleased to advise you, we produce a wide range of beverages. We also produce the best rum in the world. We have the XM, which is produced by Banks DIH, and you have choices of 7-year, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, and 15-year-old. El Dorado rum is produced by Demerara Distilleries, and you have choices again: 5 years, 8 years, 12 years, 15 years, 21 years, and 25 years old. So for those persons who are so inclined, you have several choices. Madam Chairperson, this meeting is being held under the theme Social Justice, the Foundation for Sustainable Caribbean Transformation. I have carefully perused the program, and I'm of the view that the topics for discussions are very important and particularly relevant at this point in time in our present situations. It is quite clear that they set the framework for future collaboration among ministries of labor in the Caribbean, and I'm looking forward to positive outcomes, as I'm sure that my colleagues are too. At the end of this day, I am expecting outcomes that would see us not only collaborating on the various issues, but also having exchange programs with each other ministries and a reinvention of our technical education program to ensure that more persons will benefit from same. There must be a roadmap as to where we go from here at the end of this important meeting. Otherwise, we will be failing our people who are expecting much more from us. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome, welcome, welcome to this important meeting.
Thank you very much, Minister Hamilton, perhaps doubling as our tourism minister this morning, selling so proudly our country as we mark our 57th independence anniversary this week. This is the opening of the 12th ILO meeting of Caribbean Ministers of Labor. The ILO Decent Work Team and Office for the Caribbean Office for the ILO is represented by Mr. Dennis Zulu, Director, who we will hear opening remarks from now.
Your Excellency Dr. Muhammad Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Honorable Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips, MP, Prime Minister of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Honorable Madame Justice Yonette Cummings Edwards, Chancellor of the Judiciary, Honorable Manzoor Nadir, MP, Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Dr. Bharat Jagdeo, I hope I got that right, MP, Vice President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, former Presidents, Prime Ministers present, Honorable members of the Cabinet, members of Parliament, Honorable Caribbean Ministers of Labour and heads of delegations, members of Diplomatic Corps, Leader of Opposition, Honorable Madame Roxanne George, Warwickshire, Chief Justice, Honorable Justices, Honorable Worship Obraj Nareen, Mayor of Georgetown, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow ILO UN colleagues, a good morning to you all. Let me firstly start by expressing our sincere condolences to Your Excellency on the loss of about 20 young ones in the fire a couple of days ago. We indeed share your loss, and we wish the families of the departed God's blessings. On behalf of the International Labour Organization, the Decent Work Team in Office for the Caribbean, I welcome you to the opening of the 12th ILO Caribbean Labour Ministers meeting. It is indeed my distinct pleasure to join you in this wonderful town of Georgetown. I would like to begin by expressing our sincere gratitude to you, Your Excellency, and the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, and particularly the Ministry of Labour and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the International Corporation for graciously agreeing to host this meeting. Honorable Hamilton, Permanent Secretary Copeland, Ambassador Evelyn, and their team have worked closely with our team over the past few months, demonstrating a commendable commitment to the success of this meeting, and that is greatly appreciated. Honorable Ministers and social partners, the meeting that is being opened today is designed to provide you with a platform to prioritize and discuss social justice as the foundation for a sustainable Caribbean transformation. This sub-region has a formidable legacy of tripartism and social dialogue, and we look forward to that spirit of cooperation throughout this week's sessions. We can all agree that the extraordinary challenges faced by our country's region and planet have been compounded into multiple overlapping crises. The impacts of COVID-19, climate change, and global conflicts have worsened pre-existing weaknesses such as unemployment levels, poverty, and inequalities. We now have no other choice but to rethink how we approach the socio-economic development challenges. In a few minutes, you'll be hearing from our ILO Director General, Mr. Gilbert Humbo, about how social justice offers governments and employers and workers' organizations an opportunity to develop effective solutions to this crisis. He will explain how this era of unprecedented socio-economic instability and uncertainty calls for a strong framework of social justice to achieve a future for work that puts people first. By creating conditions in which all people can work in freedom and dignity, social justice enables equal access to opportunities that reduce inequalities, boost productivity, build socioeconomic security, and enables just transitions. In these unprecedented times, it calls for unprecedented solutions. And I'll further explain how we can collectively optimize social justice to challenge or to change the course of how we prepare for, respond to, and recover from crisis for the benefit of the people and economies of this region. Firstly, social justice reduces inequalities. It promotes social access to equal opportunities in the labor market, irrespective of factors such as gender, race, ethnicity, or socio-economic background. As the Caribbean crisis faces rising poverty levels, social justice can counteract the consequential inequalities through policies and practices that ensure non-discrimination and equal treatment for a more inclusive and fair labor market. Secondly, social justice enables greater skills development and education. With skills gaps becoming more evident during the pandemic recovery, social justice can provide inequitable access to quality education, skills development opportunities so that people are better equipped to fulfill current labor market demands. It encourages greater investment in vocational training programs, technical education, lifelong learning initiatives that can enhance workers' skills, improve employability, and reduce skills mismatch in the labor market. The third, social justice encourages increased social protection, which, as you know, is very important for all of us. The loss of jobs after crises such as the pandemic and climate events revealed lack of social protection for many across this region, which has resulted in greater inequalities and higher poverty levels. Social justice provides an anchor to close gaps in social protection, including unemployment, benefits, job training, and income assistance for people during periods of economic instability. The fourth point is the fact that social justice reduces informality, which is actually quite pervasive in this region. Social justice has immense potential to reduce the prevalence of informal employment and promote formalization in the Caribbean. This involves creating an enabling environment for small businesses, simplifying bureaucratic procedures, and providing incentives for businesses to operate in a formal sector. Formalization offers workers access to legal protections, social security, and opportunities for career advancement. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, over the next 3 days, you'll be encouraged to exchange your perspectives on how to mainstream social justice to strengthen the socio-economic development of the English and Dutch-speaking Caribbean. Under the same theme, you will have an opportunity to address labor migration as a potential enabler of decent work and accelerator of Caribbean development. You will also examine how this sub-region has progressed in the just transition policy and institutional mechanisms. Your discussions will culminate in the setting of priorities for action in ILO technical assistance for 2024-2025 biennium. Your Excellency, Honorable Ministers and social partners, as you work together to mobilize social justice for more cohesive and effective Caribbean society and economies, I encourage you to determine how it can increase our productive capacities to reduce inequalities and advance inclusive and sustainable growth. Before ending my speech, let me allow me to emphasize that the ILO Decent Work Team and Office for the Caribbean remains a steadfast partner to the governments, employers, and workers of this sub-region. We look forward to deepening our collaboration to develop and implement social justice mechanisms that uphold decent work in achieving economic development and social progress for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Zulu. We'd like to recognize the representatives of the Caribbean Congress of Labor, the Employers Consultative Association of Trinidad and Tobago, the Jamaica Employers Federation, it's Labor Day today in Jamaica, representatives from the World Bank, representatives from the various UN agencies in Guyana. And now we invite UN Resident Coordinator in Guyana, Ms. Yushim Uruk, for remarks.
Your Excellency, Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Honorable Mansour Nadir, the Speaker of the Assembly, Honorable Joseph Hamilton, Minister of Labor of Guyana, and Cabinet Ministers here, Honorable Colin Jordan, Minister of Labor and Social Security of Barbados, the many ministers from the region, social partners, labor unions, employers associations, ILO Regional Director, my colleague Dennis, ILO Caribbean Office, Assistant Secretary General of CARICOM, members of the media, my colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps, my UN agency colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First of all, allow me to join others in expressing my condolences on behalf of the United Nations and our prayers for the fortitude and patience for the bereaved. And I recall the humanity that and the generosity of the people of Guyana. I'm American, Turkish American. When a disaster hit my country, the generosity and the people, the humanity of the people of Guyana united me and in the pain of many suffering there with Guyana. And I extend the United Nations, entire United Nations family's condolences to you, Excellency, in this moment of sorrow. As many of you are aware, we're at the midpoint of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As my colleague Dennis from the ILO expressed, we are off track. For the SDG Summit that's coming up this fall, the UN Secretary General has called on all countries to recommit to the SDGs, to the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm personally proud to be serving the United Nations here in Guyana, where a rapidly growing economy and an SDG-enabling budgetary framework lead us all to anticipate that Guyana will indeed be able to make those transformative commitments for achievement of the SDGs. I trust that all the other countries represented here are also committed to do so, while larger economies and developed countries also do their share by recommitting to their own long-standing pledges for financing for development, and by responding to the Secretary General's calls made only yesterday at the G7 for an SDG stimulus plan, which among others has the Bridgetown Initiative from our region at its core. For the overall arching goal of getting back on track for achieving the SDGs, the United Nations Development System is present in all the countries represented here. We're present through a cooperation framework that's delivered in 22 countries and territories. This UN partnership framework identifies social protection through SDG 1 and decent work, SDG 8, as critical elements of national progress towards all the Sustainable Development Goals. This is very much in keeping with the Secretary General's Global Accelerator Initiative on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transitions. Your Excellency, Honorable Ministers, social partners, One of my jobs as UN Resident Coordinator is ensuring that the UN development system provides the technical cooperation to the people and governments in the region in a way that is aligned to your national priorities and in a way which utilizes the full potential of the UN development system to work with you on your journeys towards the SDGs. In this effort, the International Labour Organization, ILO, is an essential constitutive part of our cooperation in the region. Indeed, I believe ILO was the first representative that I called when I joined the United Nations here at the end of 2021. Noting the transformative change that was ahead of Guyana, I knew for sure ILO would be my first port of call. And I'm very proud to say that our conversations with my colleagues at ILO have indeed reinforced the partnership that the ILO has here in Guyana, not only with the Ministry of Labor, but beyond. The skills needs analysis work that ILO has been able to complete with you, Honorable Minister, I believe are really important for us to catch up and to serve the evolving needs of this very dynamic economy. By further engaging the ILO in our system-wide, UN system-wide partnerships on human rights through the National Mechanism for Reporting and Follow-up on Human Rights of the Government of Guyana, I'm very pleased to see very important progress on internalizing and reporting on conventions such as the Convention on the Protection of the Rights of Migrant Workers and their families and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Just yesterday, my colleagues from UN Women launched a Women's Empowerment Principle initiative with the private sector, which has a lot of the ILO, protected ILO promoted conventions at its hearts and the rights of women at its hearts. By signing on to the Women Empowerment Principles, it allows companies to extend the work on gender-based violence into its spillover in the workplace and to commit to eliminating harassment at the workplace. And I'm very glad that our work under Spotlight is indeed supportive, Minister. There are many opportunities, other opportunities through multiple sectors for us to work in amplifying the impact of UN's work through ILO's unique roles in standard setting through the conventions and through technical cooperation with your ministries, social partners, and employers. The most effective way for us to leverage the full suite of ILO's competencies for development cooperation is through the Decent Work Country programs. The components of labor standards, employment promotion, social protection, and social dialogue all allow us to leverage the ILO competencies to support Guyana and all the countries in the region through their SDG journey. That is why I'm absolutely thrilled to learn that countries in the region are now speeding up their signing on to the Decent Work Country programs, including Guyana. And I thank you for that. With the SDGs as our compass, I encourage you, social partners, ministries of labors, all the civil society here, and international partners in your deliberation to consider how these Decent Work Country program components articulate with the many other ongoing programs in your countries for human rights, for rights of women, for persons with disability, for young people, and for future generations, all towards a just and equitable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, UN Resident Coordinator here in Guyana, Ms. Yeshim Uruk. On we go with the opening ceremony of the 12th ILO meeting of Caribbean Ministers of Labor here in Georgetown, Guyana, being hosted for the third time. Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, was one of the first Caribbean heads yesterday to reach out to support and extend solidarity with us, and we express our thanks to all in sharing our pain across the region and further afield. Honorable Colin Jordan, Minister of Labour, Social Security and Third Sector in Barbados, is our next speaker.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies, Your Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Speaker of the Assembly, Mr. Gilbert Humboldt, Director General of the International Labour Organization, Honorable Joseph Hamilton, Minister of Labour of Guyana, and other members of the Cabinet of Guyana, colleague ministers from across the region, Claudia Coinarts, Director, ILO for this region, Ms. Yeshim Uruk, United Nations Resident Coordinator in Guyana, Mr. Dennis Zulu, Director of the ILO Decent Work Team and Office of the Caribbean, Ms. Alison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General for Human and Social Development of the Caribbean Community, representatives of diplomatic missions, representatives of the ILO regional, sub-regional, and headquarters offices, representatives and observers of other international and regional organizations and institutions, representatives of workers and employers organizations, officials of the ministries of labor across our region, media professionals, specially invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all, good morning to all of you. Allow me to add my voice to my Prime Minister's voice in extending sincere condolences to the government and the people of this great cooperative republic. And we, as our Prime Minister indicated, share your deep loss and wish you well as we rebuild from that tragic occurrence. I also, at the same time that I express condolences, wish to wish you, in spite of that, a happy independence as you celebrate 57 years of being able to chart your own future. The last time the Ministers of Labour met under the ILO umbrella was in 2019 in Barbados, and I had the honor to host that 11th ILO meeting of Caribbean Ministers of Labour. I thank the ILO Decent Work Team and Office for the Caribbean for bringing us together again for this 12th meeting. This is after 3 very difficult years created by the pandemic, 3 years that posed challenges of all types, including many restrictions, among them travel restrictions. Before proceeding further, permit me to join in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Gilbert Humboldt. He'll be participating in this, his first meeting of ILO Caribbean Ministers of Labour since his election to the office of Director General of the International Labour Organization last year. I will not be true to myself if I did not say that I would have preferred if he were here in person. I hope I'm not creating any diplomatic challenges for my country. We meet in Guyana, the seat of the CARICOM Secretariat, in this, its 50th year of existence, of this iteration of the Regional Integration Project. In July 1973, Barbados' then Prime Minister, the now Right Excellent Errol Barrow, was one of those leaders, along with the then leader of Guyana, who signed on to the Treaty of Chaguaramas. I said this iteration only because we recall that the then Premier of Barbados, Sir Grantley Adams, and we recall his role in the West Indies Federation, serving as its only Prime Minister from 1958 to 1962. Now, I mention these to underscore Barbados's enduring commitment to this meeting, these meetings, and all other efforts to recognize our Caribbean civilization and to bring our Caribbean together. The theme chosen for this meeting, social justice, the foundation for a sustainable Caribbean transformation, is both appropriate and timely. There will be much to unpack during the sessions of this meeting. What I must do at this point is to underscore the fact that social justice is and must remain the foundation for all we do in nation and region building, and in all we do for workers who are a critical part of the construction of the nations and regions that we want. As we are aware, the lack of commitment to the principles of social justice by far too many larger and more powerful states was highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Beyond the pandemic, there's a climate crisis. There are conflicts such as the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and there are also conflicts that many choose to ignore in the Middle East and in Africa. And they all speak to how social justice is viewed in our world. Small states, including our states in the Caribbean, can only develop and be transformed in a sustainable manner where and when there is social justice globally. I plan, Claudia and Dennis, to have a lot more to say during next month's International Labour Conference on the Committee on Just Transition. There's a lot that needs to be said to those who need to hear. Barbados concurs with the Director General when he spoke on World Day for Social Justice, and he said, "What the world needs now is a strong and sustained dose of social justice, which is key to fair, peaceful societies." In that vein, we support, strongly so, the creation of a global coalition for social justice, and our Prime Minister will be in Geneva next month to add her voice and support to this call and to this necessary institution that needs to be created. I encourage my colleagues across the region to support this initiative, even as I encourage all of you to support the democratization of the International Labour Organization. My government believes that we ought to practice what we preach, and so having launched the Social Justice Committee in 2019, we provided a platform for stakeholders in the private sector, the trade union movement, and civil society, or the third sector, to be a part of the decision-making process in our country, and to assist in creating a society that is equitable and one where people are physically and psychologically safe and secure. Allow me, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, to remind us all that we can make a difference on the global stage. The voices of small countries can influence the thinking that guides global development. We have been seeing it. I have experienced it. Do not underestimate our potential to impact the world in significant ways. Let us, over these 3 days, identify what is needed for sustainable transformation. Let us understand the challenges each of us face, and let us create pathways and solutions to overcome them. I wish us all a very productive meeting.
Thank you, Minister Colin Jordan. When the CARICOM heads of government met last year, they called for a whole of government and society approach to recovery and resilience, noting the critical need for member states to strengthen social safety nets despite severely constrained fiscal situations, and we heard Minister touch on that just now. And so we now invite Assistant Secretary General, Human and Social Development from the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, Ms. Alison Drayton, for her remarks.
Good morning. Your Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, the Honorable Joseph Hamilton, Minister of Labor of Guyana, and other members of Cabinet of Guyana, my dear friend, Mr. Gilbert Humbo, ILO Director General, who I am sure will be visiting the region shortly since he is unable to be with us today. The Honorable Colin Jordan, Minister of Labor, Social Security, and Third Sector Barbados, and other Caribbean Ministers of Labor. Mr. Dennis Zulu, ILO Caribbean Office, Ms. Yashim Uruk, UN Resident Coordinator, Guyana, other officials and members of delegation, members of the media, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen all. Let me add my voice, President Ali, and that of the Secretariat in total in extending our sympathy to the horrible events. I know the Secretary General has been in touch personally, but as you know, many of our staff have served here for years, and we feel your tragedy as our own. It is indeed a pleasure to deliver these brief remarks on behalf of Dr. Carla Barnett, the Secretary General of CARICOM Secretariat. This, the 12th ILO meeting of Ministers of Labor, is a very important one. The theme of the meeting, social justice, the foundation for sustainable Caribbean transformation. If we take a critical look at the theme, we appreciate the need for dialogue and collaboration in facilitating our region's transformation. When we refer to social justice, we refer to the distribution of wealth, opportunities, and privileges within a society. We refer to the view that everyone deserves equal economic, political, and social rights. It is significant that social justice is not at the pinnacle of sustainable Caribbean transformation. Rather, it lies at the foundation. The foundation of any structure is indeed the most important place on which growth and expansion occurs. We are all familiar with the saying that a solid foundation is necessary to build on. Therefore, placing social justice at the foundation for sustainable Caribbean transformation ensures that we have a solid and stable baseline for all of the initiatives and activities which follow thereafter. Having placed social justice at the forefront of what we do, and having recognized that it must reside at the foundation of our work, we can then consider the concept of sustainable Caribbean transformation. Sustainability speaks to that which can be maintained at a certain rate or level. It speaks to consistency and the avoidance of waste or depletion of resources. Sustainability is not concerned with one-off, but rather the long-term, the strategic, the effective use of resources to achieve objectives over an extended period of time for the benefit of all. Finally, when we speak of transformation, we refer to a significant change in form, nature, or appearance. This means that the work we do is meant to achieve more than a short-term incremental change. Rather, we hope to achieve that which is strategic, significant, bold, and indeed revolutionary in shaping the labor landscape of the Caribbean. I remind all of us that all of the political parties in our region, the inception parties, came out of the labor movement, and the vigor, commitment, and passion of the Caribbean and its various leaders and administration to govern for the best of all is evident throughout our history. I think across the years of our independence, if you look at the budgets, you can see that in the region, issues related to social protection are the best funded in the budget, and it also comes through the way we deal with issues of labor. So let us reflect that as we go forward in the next few days of meetings. The need to be bold and strategic is reflected throughout the two-day program. where even a cursory review shows that clear efforts towards shaping agenda, which requires detailed focus on contemporary and important issues. For example, the inclusion of tripartite constituents, labor migration, integrated policy frameworks, fundamental principles and rights at work, and sustainable Caribbean socio-economic transformation. Though the time frame for this meeting is relatively short, the agenda reflects the expected focused nature of the deliberations and a get-down-to-business approach in order to cover all the areas on the agenda and make meaningful progress on each item. The CARICOM Secretariat is pleased to be part of this meeting, and we recognize always the ILO as a key strategic partner. There is no doubt that the meeting will be productive, due in large part to the contributions made by you, the region's ministers of labor. I wish to end by reminding you of your mandate under Articles 45, 46, and 239 of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, which speak to the goal of full, free movement of our nationals, as well as other associated areas, such as the transferability of social security and the advancement of contingent rights. These articles are not meant to add to the complexity of the deliberations, but rather to show that the area of labor is not one-dimensional. It has many interconnected layers, and while we aspire to make strides towards achieving certain objectives, we must remain cognizant of our mandate under the revised treaty. Having emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic with additional challenges in terms of migration, mobility, unemployment, health and safety of workers, and inflation, meetings such as this allow us to come together, work collaboratively, and achieve as a region what we could not achieve as individual states. I thank you and I wish you well in your deliberations.
Thank you, ASG Drayton, for those remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite you to look at the screen in front of you as we hear remarks from Director General of the International Labour Organization, Mr. Gilbert Hungbo.
Thank you so much, Moderator. Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Honorable Vice President, Prime Minister, and Chancellor, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly and Representative of the Government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Honorable Ministers of Labor and Social Affairs for the CARICOM region, my dear friend, Assistant Secretary General Alison Drayton, ASD for Human and Social Development in CARICOM, dear colleague from the UN, Yeshim Oruk, the UN Resident Coordinator, and my own colleague from ILO, distinguished delegate and guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all of you. At the outset, Excellency, Mr. President, allow me to join my voice to those that have preceded me, expressing on behalf of the ILO our deepest condolences for the tragedy that Guyana have gone through in recent days. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families, with the government, and the people of Guyana. I'm very, very, very honored to join you today at this 12th ILO Caribbean Labour Ministers meeting. My first one since I became Director General last October. And I would like to thank the government of Guyana for hosting this important event. We in ILO, we are grateful to the government for organizing this landmark event that brings together ministers of labor across the Caribbean region. Today marks the first time since 2019, since COVID, that you are meeting in person. I really wish I would have been in Georgetown as I'm speaking, particularly that I haven't been to Georgetown for more than 15 years. Unfortunately, yesterday, the whole day, I had to be in London with colleagues at the International Maritime Organization because we had to deal with an urgent matter about the seafarers that are stranded together with the ships in the ports in the context of the war between Russia and Ukraine, particularly in the three ports in Ukraine. And the situation about those seafarers are really issue that we are not talking about, and is getting much more dire. And I had to be there, and unfortunately, I couldn't have the flight that would bring me from London yesterday evening, so to arrive in Georgetown on time for this opening session. So I can only tell you and make my commitment that as soon as that will be possible, very likely in the second half of the year, I will really be honored and pleased to visit you in the region. So I really want to use this opportunity to confirm to Minister Jordan that your point is rather very, very welcome. It's certainly not diplomatically incorrect. I'm longing forward to visit you. Allow me to start by telling you, Excellencies, touching base on some of the points that ILO is dealing with in the context where we know that the world is facing unprecedented challenges. And for the Caribbean, socioeconomic vulnerabilities have been magnified by the direct consequences of COVID-19, the extreme weather and the accelerated climate change, as well as the effect of geopolitical tension and armed conflicts around the world. The resounding impacts of this crisis has revealed the interlinkages and the dependencies between economies and societies set against the backdrop of disruptions linked to globalization and technology, significant demographic transformations, increasing migration flows, and long-standing situation of fragility of many kinds. The world of work has not been spared by these upheavals, particularly in the small island development states and the small, highly indebted middle-income countries, where labor policymakers, workers' organizations, employers' organizations are now confronted with the Herculean task of transforming the structural makeup of their economies so as to make them resilient enough and to be able to withstand the shock that will undoubtedly come again. Under the meeting theme, the social justice, the foundation for sustainable Caribbean transformation, you will have the opportunity to engage in discussions towards identifying and articulating solutions to these challenges through the social justice lens. Our collective duty is to use our tripartite power to position social justice as the keystone of the global economy and to demonstrate how government, workers, and employers have a role to play in making social justice a reality at all levels. We gather here with the shared conviction that through decent work and productive employment opportunities, we can advance the cause of social justice. We must elevate the quest for social justice as a global policy imperative, one that requires greater multilateral and regional cooperation and policy coherence. Hence, my call for a global coalition for social justice. The mandate to make the attainment of social justice the central aim of policy at all levels is already provided in ILO Constitution in 1919. Using this unique ILO tripartite platform to assemble other actors and forge a global alliance, a global coalition for social justice, we can better fulfill our mandate. By advocating for prioritizing social justice in policy making and decision making at all levels, by promoting common framework for action within the multilateral system, be it the UN system, the IFI, the Multilateral Development Bank, and other actors, including the private sector, the civil society, etc. By working better together within such a system, each of us, each agency will be able to do more to advance its own mandate and to accelerate progress toward the sustainable development goals. By enhancing international coordination for greater policy coherence, it can facilitate high-level dialogue and close engagement between the ILO and the Bretton Woods institution, and of course the regional development banks. Social justice, it is also about giving to each one of us equal access to opportunities, equal access to a productive, a decent, fulfilling job, equal access to opportunity to create and prosper one's own enterprise. It is also the need for us to ensure that our citizens have access to basic services. It is also a matter of fighting against child labor, against forced labor. But social justice, it is also within ILO own governance. So allow me to thank Minister Jordan to recall the ongoing democratization that we are working on within ILO and call on you, member states, to continue your efforts so such democratization can yield the fruits we all expect. This is why, in the framework of the International Labour Conference on the 14th and 15th June, we are organizing the World of Work Summit on the theme of social justice for all. The head of state, head of government, and other leaders will add to the momentum for forging a global coalition for social justice. And in that regard, I want to pause and thank Prime Minister Mia Motley from Barbados for accepting the invitation to address the summit. Excellencies, as Caribbean World of Work leaders, you each have a vital role to play within the Global Coalition for Social Justice, particularly to ensure that realities from this sub-region are heard and are prioritized. There is immense potential to be impactful by taking an integrated approach that brings together the ILO tripartite institutions and the relevant organizations of the multilateral and the bilateral systems. While social justice may seem to be a distant prospect, it is at the core of our common agenda that the UN Secretary General Guterres has launched for many years now. The roadmap for inclusive, networked, and effective multilateralism. Together, we must be ready to forge and to lead such a coalition so to advance our common cause and to promote greater coherence between our mandates within the world of work. Finally, and within the context of climate change and its impact on the smaller developing states in the Caribbean region, I believe there is a crucial need for member states, in partnership with the ILO, to treat these issues of the impact of climate change on workers and employers in the region. So we in ILO, we stand ready to work with you on this critical agenda. Let me take this opportunity to reiterate our invitation to your head of state and head of government to join the 16 head of states who have so far confirmed their participation in the summit I referred to. Honorable ministers, distinguished participants, let me end up by wishing you great success in your deliberations over the next 3 days. I look very much forward to continuing our conversation in Geneva in the framework of the 111th session of the International Labour Conference. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Director General for the International Labour Organization, Mr. Gilbert Hungbo. Ladies and gentlemen, in keeping with the National Days of Bereavement we are observing, we will not have the cultural presentation as scheduled on the opening ceremony, but we will continue to offer thoughts, prayers, and consolation to the families of the victims and survivors of the Madhya tragedy. And now may I invite you to stand as we invite for the address of the 12th ILO meeting of Caribbean Ministers of Labour, His Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali.
Thank you very kindly. Thank you. Please. Distinguished ministers, members of the diplomatic community, our guests, let me welcome you to Guyana and wish you a stay that will be remarkable and one that would allow you to fulfill the purpose and the goals that you would have set yourselves in this conference. Let me thank all of you and the dozens of leaders and organizations who express their prayers and thoughts and good wishes for the families and the people of Guyana at this time. I want to acknowledge the immediate help of those in CARICOM, Prime Minister of Barbados. Today we have a team of experts arriving from Barbados to assist us in the DNA analysis. I want to thank our international partners, the United States of America, PAHO, and all others who very readily offered full support in all that we need at this time. I would say that what we need at this time is your continued prayers and thoughts for the families and the communities. We pray collectively that the God of love, faith, and patience will continue to bless the families and communities, will continue to strengthen them in faith, shower them with love, and increase their patience through this difficult time. We pray that the God of healing will help those who are still in hospital, cause them to be fully recovered. It is difficult sometimes to understand why these circumstances exist. Many questions life offers us, but through faith and patience and understanding of who we are, mere mortals, we have an appreciation that we are mere visitors in this place. One of the hardest tasks as president so far was to, and is, to confront this challenge. Cannot also not remember the generous offer of Cuba yesterday to give us full medical support in and out of Guyana, and to be a host country for any medical needs in Cuba. It is in these times of sadness that a nation must gather strength, that a nation must gather faith and love, and understand that our collective responsibility is towards each other. And our collective purpose as a people, blessed in a land that we call home, is to support each other. Today, you are all gathered here under the theme of social justice. The minister from Barbados raised some important concerns. Social justice is not a national responsibility alone. It is not a regional responsibility. As the Assistant Secretary General said, social justice must be the foundation on which everything stands. For social justice to exist, there must be some guiding principles that will allow us at a global level to understand that global social justice is not a theory, but social justice is a set of principles and values that we are all going to bound ourselves by. If we examine what is occurring in the world, The question really is, does social justice exist globally? And is social justice really a priority of the global agenda? Notwithstanding the lofty goals of the ILO, you still need to answer these questions. If we look at the three confronting crises of the world, energy security, food security, and climate security, where does social justice exist? At the first global challenge the world faced, social justice was erased. It became a selfish enclave of protectionism. We must not forget that those who could not have afforded the vaccines are still waiting for the vaccines. Those who could have afforded the vaccines were told you're not priority in the line. We understand that every nation must protect their citizens. But if social justice is a global concept, then there should be global responsibilities. Social justice cannot be an event, or it cannot be targets. And that is what we have allowed social justice to be, a set of measurable targets that we aim to achieve. Social justice must be a culture through which society are built, through which nations are built, through which policies are built. It cannot be a set of target and culture. For it to work every single day for us, it must be a culture that all of us adhere to and adopt. Too many times as countries we are asked to manage for targets and manage for outcomes and manage for situations and manage for benchmarks and manage for statistics. But are we managing for people? Are we managing for people? Are we building systems that allow people to be the center of the policy? It is time we wake up as a world. And if we are managing for people, what is the situation with the vulnerability of those who are worst affected by climate change, and this region is worst affected? How are we going to calculate the disparity that exists and the proportionate responsibility of what is required? Will the system allow us to have that conversation? Or would we ensure that the system allows that conversation? We may be too small individually, but collectively we have enough to question the system. We cannot continue in a world where we know that the three crises will affect us the worst without having answers now. Social justice for workers is accessibility to financing to ensure that the future generations of workers have access to education, have access to health care, have access to equal opportunity. Social justice is not about creating the framework for existing workers alone. It is about how globally we are taking collective responsibility for the workforce now and in the future. And what is happening? Interest rate is driving up, Concessional financing is drying up. Grants is drying up. Climate financing is nowhere, just theoretical talks. Gaps in food security is widening. Those are the important conversations that social justice must surround. Democracy, the rule of law, and freedom are components of social justice. Building a culture of social justice is accepting the gaps. Will there ever be a thorough global, I don't want to say investigation, but global review of what took place in the pandemic? And will people be held responsible? I guess not. Do we even want it? Have we even asked for it? If the oath of every scientist and every medical practitioner is to serve humanity equally, without fear or favor, was that oath honored? I am not saying it was not, but I am saying there are questions to be answered. How are we preparing our system for the next pandemic? Not if the next pandemic will come, but for the next pandemic. The size of economy and status of countries, the measuring bar. I'm not saying it is, but a question exists. These conferences must not be bounded only by externalities. These conferences must be shaped by your own realities. We must pose the questions, and we must advance our agenda in the region. In this region, we too have priorities. We too have an agenda. We too have citizens. We too have realities. We too have circumstances. It is time for us to use these forums to advance our cause as a people of this region. The ILO must not escape this symposium without providing answers, or without assuring us in this region that our priorities will be on the agenda for answers to be provided. I am presented with a host of facts and figures that I'm supposed to repeat to you this morning. But the construct of these facts and figures is built on an inequitable system. It is built on a system that is void of social justice, and I would not succumb myself to these facts and figures. One natural resource, one natural disaster wipes out every educational facility and health facility in this region. That's the reality. We in Guyana are working very hard on many issues. Our challenge is a bit complex, not different, but complex. Today we have to craft our minds around a labor policy that will allow us to fill the needs and gaps that we have. In CARICOM itself, recently, we had a redefinition of terms, the redefinition of different categories of labor. In proactively dealing with our own circumstances, our own gaps. As the world faces its own labor challenge, we in the Caribbean find ourselves in a position that we are investing for those who can pay higher. We spend our public resources to train our nurses. And today, all the region, everyone in the region can tell you that as the world faced its first challenge as an offspring of the pandemic, our ground becomes a recruiting ground. Now, there is freedom of movement of labor. We cannot afford the salaries. So is affordability a component of social justice? Is scale of economy a component of social justice? These are questions that you are facing as ministers of labor today. Overnight, we can see our entire healthcare system collapse because the foundation of that healthcare system is being actively sought after. I see every single day special migration programs and policies developed to target the highly skilled workers of our region. We cannot afford the type of salaries that will keep them. How does social justice interplays with all of this? Social justice is not only about the country's responsibility, it's about the world responsibility. It's about the responsibility of the citizens to themselves. Because if policies are designed to ensure that we secure our labor, then you will run foul of other conventions. That's the reality. How do we strike the balance? Otherwise, we will just have a circular momentum of the same problem. The question is, how ready are we as a community to deal with these challenges? We also have to address our citizens through education program. Many of our citizens work in the informal sector for the avoidance of taxation. Many of them prefer to be temporary workers because we have built a culture in the region that needs to change. The value of work, the importance of principles that govern the value of work must be rekindled among our people. The truth is, and I can give you the experience here in Guyana, if you drive around, you will see vacancies everywhere for people. Construction companies, every day we have projects held up because they cannot find people. Government implementation is affected. Private sector delivery is affected. And then to compound that, because of demand and supply, the price changes in labor is creating a culture where there is no need for 7 days or 6 days or 5 days of work. With 3 days of work, you can earn the same resources. So all you really need is 3 days. These are real issues. These are not imaginative issues. These are real issues that we are faced with. So our labor framework in this region has to be different. Our circumstances is different. Our cultural makeup is different. And unless we can appreciate this, and we can build our policies and our programs around this frame, we'll be doing a great injustice to policy making. We have to, and you as ministers of labor, have to create this understanding in the global system of our own circumstances, our own challenges. Today, in Guyana, we are building a system for the future. 20,000 online scholarships, working towards making university education free. The expansion of technical vocational education training. The building of an international hospitality center, training institute. We have to train 6,000 people by 2025. That is new entrants just for the hospitality sector. We're now providing the facilities and the technology for all our teachers to become trained teachers in the next 3 years. So every single teacher in Guyana will be a trained teacher. Tremendous investment, but necessary investment. We are building a framework of benefits and salary that will allow us to retain our workers. We're constructing a number of state-of-the-art hospitals, level 5 hospitals all across the country, so we can provide the best possible health care for the people. We're strengthening our democratic institutions, building stronger the rule of law, so that people can live in a free, open, democratic society. One that is driven by the free expression of the will of the people. We're building sports facilities, smart hub, internet hub in the vast hinterland of our countries, so that people, every single person, will have access to educational and training opportunities. We have set ourselves a goal as part of the CARICOM commitment of 25 by 2025 in ensuring food security. And we're investing in young people and women to be part of this agenda, investing in a technology that will encourage them to be part of this sector, changing the culture of who a farmer is creating value to every form of work, giving more women opportunity to own their own businesses, because that is a major problem we have in the region. How do we deploy more women in the workforce? And one of the things that we are doing here, in addition to bringing them in business and small businesses, is to create an enabling environment through which the women of this region who were previously considered as homemakers, we're giving them the training to work in the ICT sector. We're aggressively building out call centers, shells in every single region, and seeking international players to come in and to use those shells to create employment. The shells are built as an incentive to attract the businesses. And that would in turn employ thousands of women who are not in the workforce, adding household income, increasing disposable income. And these are things that are critical. How, as a region, we look at innovative opportunities to add to household disposable income. How do we do this? How do we use our platform in this region to create a common opportunity through innovation and technology to deploy women into the workforce and add to household disposable income? Those are important questions. If, as a region, we decide that we want the CARICOM region to be the online hub for accounting services, then how do we arrive at that? How do we train young women and young people in basic accounting and then develop a world-class technological platform through which we can provide global services? What is the investment that is needed and how we can do this together? So the statistics that I'm given on women and youth involvement is rehashing the problem. But how are we going to work on the innovative solutions? We have been in the tourism business all our lives. Yet we don't have a world-class tourism institute that provides global service. We have all the experience, we have all the expertise. We have not deployed it to launch a global scale product. This region has the capacity and capability in providing a platform through which we can offer global education services in key areas like tourism. So, as we advance this conference on social justice, I remind you that more than 53%, or 4 billion people of the global population, are not covered in a social protection program. This is recognized as a human right. It's part of the Human Rights Declaration. More than 4 billion people not covered in social protection. This is the reality of the world in which we live. Studies have shown that 1% of GDP investment in social protection policies can have a multiplier effect on GDP between 0.7% and 1.9%. That is a theoretical study. Just imagine if we deploy 1% of global GDP to help developing countries. What will be the multiplier effect? Are we willing to put this as the target? If the ILO spends so much money on this study that shows the multiplier effect of 1% of national investment on GDP, you have proven it. What are you now going to do to ensure the globe commit to 1% to developing countries of GDP? 1% of the developed world GDP. Just imagine the multiplier effect. I'm just utilizing the outcome of your study to push for a target that should be a global target. It is found that poverty was reduced between 4% and 1.3%, with an increase of 1% GDP in social protection investment. This is not my study, this is your study. So if with an investment of 1% of GDP, you can reduce poverty by 4 and 13%, imagine if this commitment is fulfilled globally, what you'll be doing for the working population, what you'll be doing for people in the developing world, what you'll be doing for people in the underdeveloped world. So in the interests of social justice, I would like to see from this symposium a strong statement that pushes global commitment on this 1%. In the Caribbean, when you examine the population covered by at least one social protection benefit in 2020, in most of our countries, we are below the 60% mark. And we are below the 60% mark because when COVID hit us, we had to take money that was programmed for education, health, social protection, to ensure people stay alive. And that quantum of resources, we cannot catch up for the next 5 or 10 years because our debt to GDP ratio would not allow us. And because the cost of financing is going to set us back by another 10 years. This is the reality in the world we live in. Low-income countries would need to invest an additional $77.9 billion US dollars, equivalent to 15.9% of their GDP, to even get to that 60% mark. Lower middle-income countries will need to invest an additional $362.9 billion US dollars, 5.1% of their GDP. And upper middle-income countries would need to invest $750.8 billion US dollars, or 3.1% of their GDP. And this is only for us to have at least the basic level of social security through a nationally defined social protection floor. Where is this money coming from? What is the committed resources to this that has already been estimated at the investment that is needed? This is the type of analysis that these symposia must be involved in. Your agenda must not be driven. You must drive the agenda. Because this symposium is about you in the region. It's about us in this region. And our state of affairs in the global scheme of things. So I end by saying to you that we live in a world where it is estimated that 34% of all business-related tasks are performed by machines and 66% performed by humans. Why do I end on that note? It tells us that our human resource must now be redirected, retrained, and retooled to work in a world of machines. How are we planning for that? Our education system must be redeveloped and redesigned for robotics, for machine engineering. The entire system has to be re-engineered to this reality. Our education system has to be redesigned to this reality. And it is not. I'll give you a simple example before I close. Here in Guyana, the future is driven by machines. We have persons with 5, 10 subject CXC who are waiting to go behind a counter in a bank with a tie on to earn $600 US, $700 US per month. But we have hundreds of companies waiting for an operator that you can be trained in 6 weeks to become and earn a minimum of $2,000 US. But the brain was not engineered to think that that is an option. The brain was not engineered to think that that was an option. Because if you go into all our books at school, from the time we enter primary school, you will see that a worker, a high-profile worker, is depicted in tie, in a bank. You don't see a worker in an excavator. That is why the entire system needs to be re-engineered. We speak about food security, but you don't see in the textbook young farmers being celebrated on the cover or in the pictures or the beautiful stories in the picture. If we don't re-engineer the system, we'll succumb to the consequences of the present and not be able to build a structure for the future. I thank you for this opportunity, and God bless you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for contextualizing the outcome of today's deliberation and the remainder of this 12th ILO meeting of Caribbean Ministers of Labor, emphasizing, of course, human resources, technology, AI, economies, and so much more. And thank you, Your Excellency. Also, as a leader and as a people, we will certainly continue to rally as a nation, standing shoulder to shoulder to navigate this painful journey of recovery and healing. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of the opening ceremony of the 12th ILO meeting of Caribbean Ministers of Labor. We thank those who joined us virtually, and we extend our best wishes for a successful remainder of this meeting. Welcome again to Guyana as we mark 57 years of independence this week. And again, our heartfelt thanks to each of you for your support and prayers during this difficult time. Have a productive morning and meeting.